beats I am. That's not too bad. 'Cause I was thinking that my scale at home was way off, but it's not. I mean, it says it put me in like 217 a couple days ago. Your scale has me at 220. That's fine. 220.6.
220.6.
I guess a different. I wear these same shorts every time. How often do you think I need to come over here?
So not more than once a week to weigh. Depends on the client, but a lot of times I'll have them weigh every 2 weeks just because they get so discouraged. So what are your goals?
So, I mean, so my goal, I mean, it sounds lofty. It's 40 pounds, okay? Um, but if you want to, for one thing, if you put it in perspective, well, you lost 195 pounds. So 40 pounds doesn't sound like a lot. And I honestly do that because I'm like, well, let me compare this 40 pounds to what other people I know have done. You know, I know people who've lost, like, Boo was 275, now he's 230. Okay? So when I put it in perspective like that, I'm like, oh, well, okay. Other people have done a lot more. What I'm doing is not as bad. The other thing about it is that it sounds like a big goal, but I have a year. So my goal is to be 185, 187 in that range by October 16th of next year. So that's 48 weeks. You know, that's what Siri told me on the way over here. So I don't have 48 pounds to lose. If I lost all 48 pounds, I'd be in the 160s. So I don't want to do that. So that actually gives me a little bit of room to play with. Now, one thing I know I can't do is I was 220 today. I can't be 221 next week. I guess technically I could, but if I really want to be making progress, I need to be 219.
Right.
The only thing about that is it can be discouraging. So in 5 weeks, I would have only lost 5 pounds. You're like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. You feel like you're not making any traction. But that's where you have to continually remind yourself that you're trying to do this slowly. Because the goal is, too often, in my opinion, every time I've lost weight before, and I've done it quickly because I was trying to cut weight for something, whether most recently a powerlifting meet, before that, if I had a kickboxing match or something like that, you cut weight and you lost weight. People ask you if you're sick and all this other kind of stuff. Well, then the weight comes back quickly because as soon as you resume your normal eating habit, your appetite didn't go anywhere. You just lost weight. Then you resume your normal eating habits, and all that weight comes back with a vengeance because sometimes you've slowed your metabolism down. Your body's reacting to the rapid weight loss. This way, I'm hoping to trick my metabolism into being normal, hopefully speed it up, and preserve as much muscle mass as possible, which in turn would mean that I preserve some strength. The only thing I think that might be affected is that my leverages will change. So bench pressing, I'm anticipating will get a little bit harder. The way I'm getting around that is by trying to improve my flexibility. So I'm working on my bench arch as well. But even if I don't, the benefit of the added flexibility and mobility is I just feel better. You know, when I improve my mobility in my shoulders from last year to this year, I took away the elbow pain I had whenever I would squat. I have zero elbow pain when I squat now, simply because it's easier for me to get under the bar in the correct way, and I squat low bar. So now I don't need to wear an elbow brace when I squat. Whereas for the last 5 years, if I didn't wear the elbow brace, I'd be in severe pain. And that's starting at 135. So my top squat is 465, and we're trying to push it to 500. And I know guys who squat more than that. Can you imagine how much pain you're in from 135 pounds? Let's say you do a set of 10 at 135 and then you're pyramiding up. Imagine how much pain that is. You know, plus elbow sleeves just suck to wear. They cut off your circulation. I mean, I don't have to wear them anymore, you know? I mean, I might put them on if I have an injury or tweak something, or if I'm doing shoulder work. But for the most part, I'm just working on improving my mobility. But anyway, I think that the biggest benefit of this is accountability. I get to come over here and say, hey, you know, for one thing, there's a visual component. So you can look at me and say, hey, John, you look a whole lot rounder. What's going on? Or you can say, Okay. After about 5 weeks, you can say, you know what, you do look different. I can see it because you're only gonna see me, roughly once a week. Anyway, look what we have here. He does exist.
Magically appeared.
I know. But nah. So the thing is, I have accountability because I'm here with you. I know I have to be here to weigh in. So it kind of helps me when the snack attack happens or whatever. Like this morning, I'll tell you something that I have a 2-year-old. So she decided she wanted to be up at 1 o'clock this morning. Actually, at 11, and she was still up at 1. And I wasn't as on board with this plan as she was, right? So I've been up that long. It is now about 2:30 in the afternoon, and this is the first water I'm drinking. Okay, because I've been drinking caffeine because I've been trying to stay awake. And then she fell asleep. But by the time she fell asleep, I had to be up because I had things to do. So more caffeine. Okay, so I have to correct that with this. Typically, I have to drink 6 of these. This is 20 ounces. I have to drink 6 of these. But now I'm going to have to drink more because of all the caffeine I'm taking. I got to balance it out, Anyway, but it's more on my mind because I'm here talking to you. There's something, though. I'm not going to get out of here. I'm not going to just run my mouth on this video because there are some things I want to talk to you about. Specifically, something I was curious about. You did a video before I thought was great. I actually shared it and I put it in our newsletter where you said we should think about whether or not we're afraid to succeed, and whether that fear of success and what it might mean for us and how different life would be causes us to sabotage ourselves. The other thing I thought about is, what if you're afraid that you'll lose somebody if you get in shape because they met you when you were a one way, or they've gotten accustomed to you one way. I mean, I know a lot of guys who are like, it's just not worth it because their wife's gonna think as soon as they start trying to lose weight that they're planning on leaving her or whatever. Who you're trying to impress, that kind of thing. So first of all, what got you thinking about the idea of people being afraid to succeed?
I've heard lots of people talk about the fear of failure, and while I think that's something that a lot of people deal with, I think that the majority of us, that we've gotten into this rut for so long that we're afraid to get out of it. And getting out of the rut means we're doing something right. And so if we get out of that rut, if we get out of that familiar thing, we don't know what's going on out there. So I think that's a fear of success, a fear of, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how people are going to react. I remember on my weight loss, I had lost about 80 pounds, and this person that I truly respect and like, she's, when are you going to stop? When are you going to stop?
When are you going to stop improving yourself?
Right.
Wow. Okay.
And so that stuff happens.
Right.
And I think that's intimidating for people to start thinking about. And I still love and respect this person. Right. But I had to think through that and go, well, I'm still, over 100 pounds overweight.
Right.
So I'm not going to stop. And according to you, I'm going to look worse and worse.
Yeah.
So I just had to deal with that. And so I think, and dealing with some family members and some things that are going on there, I think that whole thing has been running through my mind about fear of success because, well, what's going to change? If I do this right, people are going to expect more from me.
That's true. The bar gets raised because they're like, oh, well, you can do this, so that means we want you to do this, or you ought to be able to do this. Yeah, I can relate to that. One thing I know people always, once I started getting bigger, people were always like, okay, and when I say bigger, so we just talked about how I'm 220 pounds. When I got out of high school, I was 130 pounds. That's 5'7", 130 pounds. Now I'm about 5'9", 220. And I still remember when I got to 165, and everybody said, man, you're huge. How much can you bench now? All that kind of stuff. And I was like still ashamed of the numbers. Like, I can't even bench 315. I mean, I can bench 315 now, okay? Let's make sure we get that clear. But anyway, I can bench over 315. But I'm saying at the time, I was like, I can't even bench 315, which was like the magic number. I was struggling to get 225. And I felt like, I don't know, I had let down everyone else who lifted weights because I was getting bigger, but I wasn't strong yet or whatever, you know. And I still remember when, like, if you go to help somebody move or whatever, and you can't carry, like, you can't just throw their car on your shoulder, and they're like, well, I thought you worked out all the time. It's like now the expectations have been raised, you know. So I mean, I guess maybe that's like what models go through. All right, you're normally in shape, and then they see you eating a donut, and they're like, "What? No, you're supposed to be the healthy person." You know, like, do you get that? I know you get that. If anybody sees you put anything in your mouth that's not "quote unquote" healthy, they're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, that happens. Even the manager at the Chick-fil-A down here.
Yeah.
I always when I ate out, I ate a certain thing there. I didn't have bread. I had the grilled instead of the fried chicken. And one day the lady that took my order screwed it up and gave me a breaded sandwich instead of without the bread. And he had seen me, and he was bringing my order out, and he says, "Is something wrong, Randy? Are you're not eating the same way you usually do?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Why? What are you talking about?" And he showed me the sandwich, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't order that."
Yeah.
You know, so there is some of that. People have those expectations now.
Yeah.
But I think that's also a good thing, because that helps keep me accountable too.
That's true, yeah.
Because people are looking.
Right.
So I'm not going to go down to Dunkin' Donuts and order, a dozen Boston cream and eat them all myself.
Okay.
I haven't had Dunkin' Donuts in years.
Notice he didn't say a dozen donuts. He had a specific flavor, all right? He's put some thought in. This is a professional, all right? He's got experience with that flavor.
Yeah, if I'm going to cheat, I'm going to cheat. I know what I'm going to cheat with, but I haven't in a while as far as Dunkin' Donuts goes. There's other cheats that I go through, and I think we need to deal with life on a regular basis. Birthdays happen, so I'm going to have a slice of cake when I'm at somebody's house.
Right.
It's not going to
You had another video about that. It's like plan it into your...
Yeah, plan it into your...
Plan into the plan or something like that.
Yeah. Plan... It's part of the... It's not a cheat. It's not a fail. It's part of the plan. I build it in.
Okay.
So I know these things are coming. I'm not gonna feel bad about it when I.
Well, how do you plan for it? If you, let's say, tomorrow's like, it's the 3rd of July, so you know what's happening the next day. It's a barbecue blowout or whatever. Well, how do you plan for that?
I just know that I'm gonna have that meal.
Do you do anything physically different? Do you like change your workouts? Do you do anything at all?
Not typically, no. I just know that I'm gonna plan these days, and I may gain, a couple of pounds, but I also know that I'm back in my regular meals after that, so it's gonna come off.
Okay.
And usually pretty quickly. So I may gain 2 or 3 pounds over a holiday weekend. Thanksgiving, I know that there's going to be pumpkin pie.
Right.
And I'm going to have it. Okay. I'm not skipping the pumpkin pie.
Okay. Well, man's got to have standards. Yeah.
That's
right.
You got
to have rules. You got to have a code you live by.
And so there's a pie, and it's going to take a couple days for it to go. So, I might have a slice a day.
Right.
And I know that the scale is going to be different, but I also know when the pie's gone, I'm back to my same routine. It's the holidays. I'm going to plan for it. I'm going to deal with it. I might do some extra walking or things like that, or take the stairs more often than the elevator at work and stuff. But I walk the stairs pretty regularly there anyway. So,
I think I know when you were at my house on Monday, we were talking, or Tuesday, whatever day, earlier this week. I was telling you that I read somewhere that LL Cool J, who's one of the, it's funny for me I remember him when he was 15, okay? I mean, he's a few years older than me, but it's funny for me to say, in my head, he's still like a teenager, right? Mm-hmm. But he's one of the first people who I recognized was in a certain, age bracket who was still concerned about looking a certain way, right? And the cool thing about it wasn't because of his job. I mean, I'm sure that the fact that, some of his marketability is related to his body has something to do with it, but he said he was working out, number one, so that his wife would never see somebody on TV and look at him and and ask herself why she made the choices she did. He's like, she might regret it because of any other reason, but it's not going to be because of my physical appearance. But at the same time, what I really liked about what he said, and at the time it didn't really make sense to me, but now it does, is he gave a weight range. He said, I'm going to be, I think it's like from 190 to 200, maybe 190 to, from 190 pounds to 200 pounds. And he said it's because he doesn't want to be that guy at Thanksgiving or that guy at Christmas dinner who's there with his Tupperware. And I think that that's the way that most of us need to live. We need to understand that we're not trying to get on a bodybuilding stage unless we are. Well, if you're trying to get on a bodybuilding stage, that's when you should be on a diet. Most of the year, you should have eating habits.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
So your weight can fluctuate, and you just know, hey, okay, all right, we're 197. We need to start making some choices, And you get to 200, you're like, all right, we got to head back down in the other direction. But it gives you the freedom to not be basically a food nerd.
Right.
And I'm not saying do flexible dieting. I mean, if that works for you, fine. I'm not going to be there counting everything and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you weigh. I think Mark Bell was like, he said he doesn't weigh his food. He weighs himself. And I think you have to be able to. There's got to be a happy fine line, or a happy middle ground between not caring at all and having a calculator and a scale everywhere you go for your food. Because we got to live life.
Right.
I'm picturing me with a food scale right now, like the church dinner, and that's not going to happen.
And I think there's principles too. You can estimate how much your food weighs too.
Right.
By looking at it. So I don't think it's necessary for everybody to weigh things, but if you look at your hand, this is approximately 6 to 8 ounces.
Okay.
The thickest part of your hand.
Okay.
For most proteins.
Okay.
So, if you know that
you're talking about like a chicken breast or a whole bunch of eggs,
piece of meat.
Okay.
Meat in general.
Okay.
That's probably about 3 eggs scrambled. Okay. So you're looking at for chicken that's 220 calories. For eggs it's 210, I think.
Okay.
And you don't have to count. It's just I've gotten in the habit to knowing.
Well, you just happen to know it.
I know.
Well, he's a food counselor, a nutrition counselor, so you're supposed to know that.
So.
But yeah, you're saying basically over time you just start knowing.
You just know that this is my portion.
Yeah.
And you can look at this buffet that they brought out at church, and you can go, okay, I'm gonna have this, this, and this. That's my protein. I'm gonna have this. That's my fibrous carbs, and I'm gonna have this. This is my starchy carbs. And okay, now I've got a complete meal, and my meal is 450 calories approximately.
Right.
Just because you can look at it and see this, you don't know everything. You don't know if they put fat back in something or but you get pretty close and not be that food nerd that's got their Tupperware at the.
Yeah.
But I've been that guy too, because my 1 year I wanted to prove that you can go through the Thanksgiving and Christmas season and eat according to your plan the whole way through.
Okay.
And so I was that guy for one season because I wanted to show people these 35 days. I went from right before Thanksgiving to after New Year's, and said these 35 days I'm going to eat according to plan, and I did. And people were like, "Well, you didn't cheat at all." I said, "No, I didn't cheat. I had my plan. I knew what was going on, and I did it."
Yeah.
So you can do it. You don't have to do it, but you
Right.
can if you put your mind to it.
And then the other thing too is I think sometimes people overestimate the impact of specific holiday meals. So I don't think Christmas dinner is going to ruin your diet or your weight loss plan. What I think the problem is extra cookies and all the other things that are just laying around that you get bored and you eat them, and they're at the office. So everybody brings the cookies in from the office. They bring them in from home or whatever. So now there's cookies all over the office. Mm-hmm. So you get bored, you walk in, you have a cookie. But the water fountain is, and I do understand that the water fountain is not as attractive as that cookie. I'm just pointing out that they're probably the same distance from wherever you are,
Unless you have to walk past the cookies to get to the water.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Or the bank teller, you're going to the bank, they have stuff out.
Oh, yeah.
You go to everywhere at Christmas time.
Your kids are selling stuff, so you feel bad because you don't buy, you know what I mean? But I mean, to put in perspective, I mean, there are people I've seen. You know, everybody's familiar with Super Size Me, but there are also people who've lost weight. There's one, at least one guy I know of, who lost weight eating strictly McDonald's,
Mm-hmm.
just to prove it. I mean, it wasn't necessarily healthy, but he did it just to prove that you could eat strictly McDonald's and lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And all that stuff just gives me hope because again, I've got a year. Well, it's technically less than a year now, but I've got time.
Right.
And my immediate goal is to be 219 pounds next week on Friday. Okay, so next Friday, roughly 2 o'clock, I need to be 219. While it's easy to get complacent, I mean, if I'm 218, I'm not going to be upset.
Right.
I'll only be upset if I'm 221.
Right.
You know,
and if you're 219.5,
that's fine.
Down is down.
Exactly.
That's what I want everybody to understand. Down is down. That's what I tell everybody who's I only lost 3 ounces this week. It's down.
It's down. Yeah. Because and I said that because I'm like, well, look at sodium intake. You never know what's going on or whatever. Hey, just down.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all that matters to me. That in 5 weeks, I'm 5 pounds lighter. I should be 215 in 5 weeks. That's lofty goals, but I think they're sensible, and there's more of a way to live, a habit-based way to live, than the stress that we typically put ourselves through. Now, don't get me wrong. If I was competing, if I was trying to get in shape for something, if I had a powerlifting meet coming up and I wanted to make a certain weight class, then I wouldn't be doing this. I would be strict with the food, all the other kind of stuff, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't.
Right.
I'm trying to change my life for the sake of having less pain in my knees, being able to do more, be more active, and just feeling better about how my clothes fit and everything else. And then also, I feel a certain responsibility because, I mean, Garage Gym Life is a health and fitness company, and I just feel like nobody who's been working out since they were I'm 44. I've been working out since I was 19 years old. I feel like I should look like I work out. And I just feel like there's a certain responsibility that you have when you put yourself up as, I'm not even saying I'm an expert, but I'm putting myself out there in the health and fitness industry. I think you have a certain responsibility to actually practice what you preach.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
And I think, for me, I make comparisons. So you've been working out since you were 19.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't start until I was 41.
Right.
And so I make comparisons, and I go, well, John's benching this. Well, John squats that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you, Randy, have to figure out that you're not John. You've only been at this for 6
You are
years.
handsome.
6 years. And you're probably never going to catch up to John, but push yourself every day and make the changes you want to make.
Yeah.
So, I say at the end of my video is exceed your vision.
Yeah.
That's, exceed that vision. Keep pushing past what you can see.
One thing that's been on my mind as, we kind of close this out is Isaiah 50 or 7. I'm probably going to screw it up now because I brought it up, but it's because the sovereign Lord helps me, I'll not be disgraced. Because, and so I've set my face like flint, and I know I will not be put to shame. And so this is a sort of thing, I bring that up, not just because I think that there's an important spiritual element to any sort of body change, body transformation. Because, I mean, if you emotionally, your spiritual situation is tied to your emotions. And emotionally, if you're not in a good place, you're not going to lose weight. Because depression is going to make you do crazy things, and it even affects how your body holds fluids and everything else. So that's there. But then the other side of it too is I think that you need to start, or at least I need to look at myself the way that God sees me. And He didn't make me to look this way. He made me, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and I need to act like I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. So I think that it's important to, I did a newsletter where I said, picture the body you have, that you want, right? Picture the body you want, and ask yourself what habits the person that has that body would have. Pick the easiest habit to implement and do it right now. And one of those is that the person with the body and the abilities that I want is someone who has a strong relationship with the Lord, because now you're not using food when you're depressed. You pray about it.
Mm-hmm.
Food is not your enemy, but it's not necessarily your friend either. Don't make food your bartender.
Mm-hmm.
All right, don't complain to food like, oh, I'm miserable, so I eat a cookie. You know, don't do that. Instead, a lot of times these things that are emotional issues that we have or whatever should be addressed through sometimes just taking a breath, and other times it's something you should pray about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as opposed to reaching for, you know, angrily eating potato chips. Don't say you've never angrily eaten some potato chips, all right? Don't say you haven't done it, But I think that's important too. I've heard other people say about that. Anna Woods, actually, who's a really good strength coach that I really respect, mentioned that she had a client come in, and after she talked to her, she said, you know what, you're actually not ready for a diet plan yet. And she gave her some Bible passages to go look at and some devotionals to do. Because you're like, until your mind and your heart are right, you're not going to stick to this.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not. So that's it. That's my 2 cents on it. As a certified non-food and nutrition counselor. That's
it. We're holistic beings, body,
Yes.
mind, and spirit. It's not just one. But we try to compartmentalize it in our society, and it's not all of it, like you said, affects everything else.
Yeah.
So, if we're not right physically, spiritually, we're suffering, mentally, we're suffering. If we're not right mentally, we're suffering in the other two areas. They're a balance. So
You'll try to fill the holes with something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right, that's it.
Go. Exceed your vision.